One thing that's awesome about stress management is when we talk about triggers, especially when we talk about triggers and boundaries. I know I've talked about boundaries, but triggers are important for us to know. If we pay attention to the times that we're angry, we're stressed out, we're agitated, what was it that triggered it? Why is it important for us, as far as our stress management, to understand what a trigger is? A trigger is something that sets us off. It could be somebody cutting you off in traffic. It could be somebody speaking to you in a disrespectful tone of voice. It could be a teenager rolling their eyes at you. That could be a trigger for you. We all have different triggers. Triggers aren't necessarily bad, but they can alert us to pay attention and to know somebody just pushed my button. And then we have a choice to make. We can choose. We don't get to choose whether or not they pulled the trigger, but we can choose to let it go so that it does no harm. Maybe they pulled the trigger. Let it pass by you. Be indifferent towards it. I'm just going to let it go because it's not worth my time. It's not worth my energy. I really don't care. If you choose to pull what triggers me and sets me off, I can decide whether or not to go along with that, or I can decide just to let it go. And I can hold on to my time. I can hold on to my energy. I can use my resource for something positive. I don't have to give in to that which has now highly irritated me, or that would normally irritate me. We become aware of the things that normally irritate us. And we get to choose. Do I really need to get upset over that? Is it really going to matter? In the grand scheme of things, does that matter? Am I going to care about that next week? Somebody cut me off today. Am I going to care about that 3 hours from now? If the answer is no, sometimes it's just better to let it go. Let it roll on by you. It's like water rolling off the duck's back. Does it really matter? Should we let it get us all worked up and all irritated so that our blood pressure rises and we're all tense and it's exhausting us and it's consuming us from the inside out? Stress consumes us, and we have the power to not let those things trigger us. How do we do that? Here's a life management skill. Know what your triggers are. Learn to understand them and accept them. And then feel the emotion. Yeah, that really irritated me. I didn't like it. I don't like it. That was rude. That was rude. Acknowledge how it made you feel, but then decide, do I want this to ruin my day? Do I want this to zap my energy? Do I want this to be what I remember out of today? Of all the other things that I could possibly remember or enjoy, am I going to let this zap it? Am I going to let it consume my time, my energy, and my resources? Probably not. Once we become aware of it, it's so much easier then to start letting it go. But it does not mean that we are a doormat. So if there's somebody that continually tries to pull your triggers and set you off, then it's time to go back to that life management skill of creating boundaries so that we don't let that person get close to the trigger. We might have to implement some things and create some buffers and some zones where we're in control and we feel safe, where they're not allowed to do that because it's not okay for you to do that. So that's the difference between triggers and boundaries. And that's why knowing what your triggers are, what sets you off, what angers you, what upsets you, if we know those things, it's important because then we can say, you know what? I know normally that would really irritate me, but it's not worth it. I'm just going to let it go because I got too many other important and awesome things in my life to let that come in and steal my joy. So that's why understanding your triggers as a life management skill and a stress management skill is so important because we can learn to acknowledge that I didn't like it and yeah, it made me feel bad, but well, I guess I'm going to let it go. And by letting it go, it's not that we're just accepting it and allowing it to happen so that we're getting stepped on, but we're acknowledging it and we're choosing to let it go because we have other things that we would rather live for, our priorities that become more important than what somebody said or what they did or what they're doing. And then we learn how to create those boundaries, which helps us. And so it's just a way of getting us to think of it differently. We learn what triggers us, and then we also learn that, I do have a decision on how I respond to that. And that is really helpful when it comes to our stress management because we don't have to let stressful things come in and zap our energy, wear us down, lower our immunities because we spend so much of our energy and our time trying to fight that other stuff. We can learn to hang on to it and use it for what really matters in our lives and live more peacefully, experience more joy, and learn to let go a little bit more. So that's why knowing those triggers is really important as a life and stress management skill.